Hello everybody, hope you're doing well and thanks for joining us for another video. Currently, within the realm of Flat Earth, one of the biggest talking points is the final experiment. Now this is the brainchild of Will Duffy, who is going to pay for a flat earther and a globe earther to go to Antarctica this December. I've been fortunate enough to be offered the spot for the globe side, and we're going with the main goal of seeing if there is a 24-hour sun or not. Because the globe model predicts there will be 24 hours of sunlight with the sun circling all the way around us, whereas on a typical flat Earth map, the sun should stay north of any location in Antarctica. Though, despite flat earthers for years saying there wouldn't be a 24-hour sun in Antarctica on flat Earth,
on a flat Earth, you can't have a 24-hour sun, a midnight sun in Antarctica. And I totally agree.
In both models, we're supposed to have a 24-hour sun. In the flat Earth model, we say there isn't a 24-hour sun in the south, and there isn't.
The midnight sun being seen only in the northern regions is evidence against the globular theory. If the world were a globe, the midnight sun would be seen in the southern regions in December, as it is seen in the northern in June.
Strangely, since the final experiment was announced, many of them have changed their tone.
So let's just ignore, because we haven't claimed it, what a flat Earth model will do. We haven't proposed one.
In reality, this is not a problem for flat Earth at all, nor is it evidence of a globe. The only reason flat earthers have claimed a midnight sun likely doesn't exist in Antarctica is because of how many clearly fake videos have been made claiming to show a 24-hour sun in the south.
Now saying they don't claim one way or the other if there would or wouldn't be one, and that even if there is, it apparently wouldn't prove anything. Unless the sun sets, then that would prove the Earth isn't a globe. But there have been quite a few flat earthers attempting to reject the final experiment before it's even happened by saying that it doesn't mean anything because it's not actually an experiment, it's an observation, so it wouldn't prove anything.
In other words, the final experiment is not an experiment, and not even a demonstration, but merely an observation.
Why? It's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy with an antipodal assumption. It's not an experiment, it has no independent and dependent variable, and you're yet to observe the phenomena if you're going to claim it.
Now, they say it's not an experiment because there are no variables. So let's first cover, is it an experiment or not, and then cover how these flat earthers have managed to now nullify several years' worth of their own arguments with those claims. Firstly, it being an observation rather than an experiment due to an apparent lack of variables. Now, an observation, for example, would be seeing that if you drop a ball, it bounces. But to form an experiment from that, you'd have to take multiple observations whilst changing the variable of drop height to see how that then impacts how high the ball will bounce back up. Or you can observe that giving plants water makes them grow, but you can change the variable of how much water you give them to see how that affects how much the plants then grow. So if we were just going to take what the sun does in Antarctica by itself, that wouldn't really tell us anything, because it circling all the way around us could mean the Earth is flat, but that Antarctica is at the centre. But that is not the only observation we'd be making. All of us would be observing what the sun does whilst we're in Punta Arenas, both before and after we go to Antarctica, and each of us will then be observing what the sun does from our respective locations before we even set off. So our observing location will be varying throughout the trip. I'm also planning on taking a solar filter with a telephoto lens in order to get some close-up views of the sun, so I will not only be able to see if there is any change in the sun's angular size throughout the day, but also the presence and location of any sunspots. And I believe there will also be other people attempting to do the same thing in different locations around the world at the same time, to see, do the same sunspots appear so that we know if it's the same sun or not, and if there is any change in the position of those sunspots, i.e. if there's any relationship between the orientation of the sunspots compared to the observer's location, and are there any variations in the sun's angular size between those locations. All those observations combined will be reality, and so any model for Earth needs to be able to account for those observations. Not only that, but Critical Think is crowdfunding to join us in Antarctica. I will leave a link to his crowdfunding page down below. He is planning to bring along some highly accurate scientific scales and weights, so that he can then measure how the variable of changing location affects the measured weight of the scientific weights, and whether such change conforms to the globe predictions of varying gravitational force. So there are certainly variables involved with the final experiment, thus it can be argued that it is an experiment. But even if we were to say that it's not, and that it is just an observation, so wouldn't prove anything, that claim directly conflicts with years of claims by flat earthers. For example, Nathan Oakley was recently offered a place on the Antarctica trip, all expenses paid, and he promptly rejected it. But one of his arguments is that a few years ago he interviewed another flat earther called Robert Shortman, who spent a period of time working in Antarctica, and he said he didn't see a 24-hour sun.
Are you able to answer the question about 24 hours of light in Antarctica on a...
I've interviewed a guy who's not experienced 24 hours of daylight in Antarctica. He spent 18 months there. Have you ever spoken to anybody ever that's been in Antarctica? Because I spoke to a chap who was a plumber on one of the rigs that's out there and spent 18 months there and categorically stated he didn't experience 24 hours sunlight.
Now, ignoring that it seems Robert wasn't actually in Antarctica during the southern summer, so he was there in a period of the year that the globe doesn't predict a 24-hour sun anyway, but Nathan is using an observation that Robert made as proof that the sun sets in Antarctica. So why is it that an observation is acceptable when it suits a flat earther's claim? Nathan also argues that the final experiment is presuming we'll be antipodal in Antarctica versus when we're in the north.
Why? It's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy with an antipodal assumption, because I've covered the same thing every time I've discussed it. The antipodal assumption, the begging the question fallacy, and the false dichotomy that they are utilising when they say they're going to go down. What, down to the bottom of a bowl you're already assuming you're on? It's not an experiment, it has no independent and dependent variable, and you're yet to observe the phenomena if you're going to claim it.
Which is not the case. It's not a presumption, it's a prediction. In an experiment, you make predictions. So, for example, if you're testing watering plants, you can make a prediction such as, I think doubling the amount of water would give double the growth of the plant, and then you test to see if that's the case. Based on a globe, the prediction is that a 24-hour sun in Antarctica would be the same as in the Arctic, circling all the way around us, staying the same size, because the two locations are antipodal. The prediction based on a flat plane is that they would be different, because the sun can't circle the Arctic and Antarctic in the same manner, no matter how much flat earthers want to think that avoiding making any predictions would somehow protect them. I mean, that is pretty much the same logic as thinking, I could put my hand in a fire and as long as I don't predict it will hurt, then it won't. Many of them also say that a 24-hour sun wouldn't disprove flat Earth, it just means that there is a different flat Earth to the one that they thought, or that there are some other variables that they've not yet taken into account. But these reactions to the final experiment are a direct contradiction to years of claims and supposed proof of flat Earth. For example, flat earthers love to bring up arguments like the black swan and other photos where they argue that you can see further than the globe predicts, so therefore Earth is flat. So point 1, viewing an object in the distance is not an experiment, it's an observation. Therefore, by flat earthers' own claims now, those don't prove or disprove anything. So, at least we know flat earthers can no longer use those against the globe. Point 2, they're presupposing a sphere of radius 3959 miles to get their prediction for how much an object should be obstructed, and when they then see objects beyond that distance, they presume that the Earth must be flat. I've never seen a flat earther test to see could the globe have a radius of, say, 5,000 or 6,000 miles. They just argue it's not 3959 miles, therefore presumption is it's flat. So flat earthers take an observation that doesn't match a sphere of radius 3959 miles, and to them, that is irrefutable proof that the Earth cannot be a globe. But now they're trying to argue that observations that wouldn't match a flat plane wouldn't actually mean the Earth isn't a flat plane, it just means there's some variables they haven't accounted for. But they won't accept that the Earth could be a sphere of radius 3959 miles, and there might be some other variables they've not accounted for, like refraction. So their arguments for why the final experiment shouldn't be considered as valid evidence for anything directly contradicts many of their own apparent proofs for flat Earth. And I've no doubt that even if I go to Antarctica and there is a 24-hour sun that we document, there will be flat earthers who try and argue that it didn't happen and that the footage is fake. However, I will say that such a response cannot come from the likes of Flat Earth Dave, Nathan Oakley, or any other flat earther who has rejected an offer of a completely free trip to go there and see it for themselves. For me personally, they forfeited any rights to question the validity of what we document the moment they turned down the offer. Well, that's going to be it for this video. As always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video and you haven't already done so, then please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.